One fine day, Emperor Akbar was in a cheerful mood. Sitting in his court, surrounded by his courtiers, he suddenly said, "I think we should find out who the biggest fool in the kingdom is." The court fell silent. Some ministers looked at each other nervously. Akbar continued, "Let's hold a contest. Whoever brings the biggest fool in the land to my court will receive a great reward." The ministers were confused. "How do we find a fool?" they whispered. But, as always, Birbal smiled calmly and said, "Give me 2 days, your majesty. I will bring the biggest fool to your court." Courtiers began bringing people they thought were foolish. One minister brought a man who sold his house to buy a donkey. Another brought a man who spent his entire fortune on building a golden kite that couldn't even fly. A third brought a man who thought the moon was made of cheese. Akbar laughed at each one but wasn't fully satisfied. "They're definitely silly," he said. "But I haven't seen the biggest fool yet." Birbal arrived in the court, alone. Akbar raised his eyebrows. "Birbal, where is your fool?" Birbal bowed and said, "I have brought him, Jahanpana. But let me tell you a little story first." Akbar nodded. The court fell silent. "Your Majesty, last week, I met a man who told me he had saved up 100 gold coins over 20 years. He had worked day and night, skipped meals, and even avoided buying new clothes so he could save every coin. When I asked what he planned to do with the money, he said, 'Oh, I am going to give it all to a priest. He said if I give him the gold now, I will have a palace in heaven after I die.' I asked him, 'How do you know you'll get the palace? Have you seen it?' He replied, 'No, but the priest promised me, and he looked very honest.' So, he handed over all his life savings to the priest, who disappeared the very next day. The entire court burst into laughter. Akbar shook his head and said, Yes, that's definitely a fool. You've won, Birbal. Where is he? Bring him in." Birbal smiled and said, "Your Majesty, I didn't bring him. I brought his story, because he's not. The biggest fool is someone who thinks he can buy property in heaven using gold on earth. And the second biggest fool would be a king who holds a competition to find fools instead of focusing on running a vast empire." The court's reaction there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, Akbar burst out laughing. The whole court followed. Akbar clapped his hands and said, "Birbal, only you could have dared to call me a fool and still keep your head." Birbal bowed with a smile.